Thank you, David. Our fourth speaker today is Toastmaster Carl Patrick. The title of his speech is Knocking on Doors and Opening My Future. Please welcome Toastmaster Carl Patrick.
Thank you. Good morning, Toastmasters and guests.
Good morning.
Now, when I was a child, my family didn't have a lot of money, so I wanted to earn my own money. I wanted to go into business. My parents wouldn't give me money, so I thought I'd ask my grandfather. He had lots of land, so I figured he must be rich. I said, "Granddad, are you rich?" He's like, "No." Then how can you afford all this land? He said, "Good credit." So, leverage, yes. So as a kid, I wanted to get into sales. I went door to door, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I learned that effort makes the difference. So I didn't have a business plan. All I had was a pair of sneakers, a product, and a dream. Have you ever had those moments as a kid? So ever since I was 10 years old, I had this itch to be in business. I wanted to make money, I wanted to connect with people, and I wanted to avoid having to ask my parents for $5. Not that they would give it to me anyway. So back then I'd flip through a magazine called Boy's Life. Anybody ever heard of Boy's Life? Yeah, ever? Okay, Boy Scouts in here? Oh, yeah. So I'd flip through that and I'd read that like a hungry dog in the back of a meat truck. I'd open it up, I'd see the advertisement for Olympic Sales Club. Sell stationery and get cash and prizes. I said, that's all me right there. So I ordered it. I went door to door. Most days I didn't make any money. Some days I did. But I knocked to this one door one day. This lady answered the door. She came out and she bought from me. And she really liked my hair. She asked me if I wanted to be in a commercial, a public television commercial. I was like, heck yeah. So she said, okay, so come back next week. And during the week, we were going into the summertime, so I got my head buzzed, and I went back, and the first thing she asked me, what happened to your hair? And I thought, oh no, I just shaved away my big break. But still, they took some video of me. I got on my bike, I put my thumbs up and smiled, and that was it. So I never really saw the commercial, but the next door neighbor kid did, and that was enough fame for me. So as a kid, I made money to buy what mattered most and spend money on what mattered most, like video arcade games and He-Man action figures. When you're a kid, you want to take these toys to school. You want to show them off to your friends, right? But my third grade teacher, Mrs. Anderson, she had a different business model. She confiscated every single one I brought to school. And I'm pretty sure she had a thriving underground black market for toys. The following school year, my brother was also in her class. So I said, well, this is my opportunity to ask for back all those toys that she took from me. She looked me in the eye and says, Carl, someday I'm going to give you back those toys. She never did. I also learned about risk management the hard way. There was a kid in the neighborhood. He saw that I had some money, and he said, hey, I'll sell you this ninja throwing star. I was like, for $5? I was like, oh, great, I'll take it. And like always, I want to take it to school, show it off to my friends, and yeah. Kids are like, oh, no, you can't have that. So yeah, I took it to school, and boom, confiscated by the principal. So she says, well, there was no return policy, no refunds. I was never going to see that again. But through it all, I kept finding ways to earn. Whether it be mowing lawns, shoveling snow worked out for a while until an older kid in the neighborhood with a snowblower came in and muscled over my route. And then I learned technology always wins. But then fast forwarding into college, in the college newspaper, there was a 2-page spread of guys that went out selling door to door, making tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands in just one summer. I was like, wow, that's for me. one of the guys on the wrestling team named Aaron, he went out and he sold $30,000 in one summer. He could do it, I can do it. So I went to an interview. They had it in the lobby of a hotel. A guy named Byron was there, who ended up purchasing the company later on, Fortune 500 company. And I got the job. We did a role play. Got the job, and I didn't get to walk through my graduation because they needed me there. So I drove across the country. I landed in a beautiful luxury apartment, paid for by the company, and then I hit the doors. Every morning till evening. I went a whole week without getting one sale. Then it seems like everybody had a lot of debt. They didn't want to pay. There was one guy, I went to his house, he had bills spread out all over his table. And he says, "Carl, you want me to buy a pest control contract from you?" And I'm still trying to figure out how to pay my bills. Well, I just thought back to an I Love Lucy episode. She just takes all the bills, throws them up in the air, and just pays the ones that land face up. Yeah, I know that was a flippant comment. But as I was wallowing at the end of the week, I had made nothing, made no sales, and I was just wallowing in my sorrow one night, and one of our team members came by. His name was CJ. He knocked on my door, not to sell me pest control, but he came in, and he could see that I was a little distraught. So he sat down, he looked me in the eye, he said, "You're knocking the wrong doors." Ever done that in life? We knock the wrong doors? Well, I was knocking the wrong doors. He said, "These people that you're knocking, they are up to their ears in debt. They don't have money for our services. What you need to be doing is knocking the houses that are about 1 to 3 years old. All right. Young families with more expendable income and less resistant and less knowledgeable and savvy to salespeople like us." So on Monday, I got to go out and shadow CJ on the doors. And I got to see his passion. I got to see how he assumed the sale, how he would take off his shoes to assume that he was going in the house. And 99% of the time he did. I got to see how he closed the sale. Now, he didn't work harder. He worked smarter. And then that Saturday, he took me to one of the newer neighborhoods. And after watching him close 2 sales in just minutes, I said, I can do it myself. So I went out. I ended up selling more sales than he did that night. And the manager mentioned it that night in our company dinner. And I learned a few things. I learned how to overcome rejection, how to listen more than I speak. Even though I never saw the commercial, and my action figures are still in teacher jail. And somewhere out there is a principal polishing my Chinese star. But I'd like to leave you with this. In life, you don't need to knock on every door, just the right ones. And when someone wiser and more experienced opens their door to help you, walk in, take notes, and go out and make your own legacy.